Hey, it's Amber. Thanks for checking out Travel Like a Local podcast, where every Monday I sit down with you and talk about the 47 countries I've visited. Each week we focus on a new experience I faced while abroad. Travel is so important and valuable. I hope this podcast helps you be prepared for whatever you might face while traveling abroad. Sit back, enjoy, and travel like a local. Hey guys, welcome back to Travel Like a Local podcast. This is episode 2. Today we're going to talk about why I have decided to travel solo for most of my trips. Probably about 80% of my trips I've traveled by myself. So probably about 40 countries I've been completely alone. And so I'm just going to talk about, the benefits of traveling solo. I think that everyone should have the opportunity and the chance to do a solo trip, even if it's just one trip to like somewhere in Europe. It doesn't have to be anywhere crazy or super, out of your comfort zone. So even if it's somewhere, even if it's in your own, country, your own state, if it's somewhere you've never been and you go by yourself, that is a huge step. And we're going to talk about just why that is such a good choice to make for your life. So I'm going to talk about my first ever solo trip first. It was 2016, and I had to go to Houston for something. And I decided to just take the week and go. So I'm originally from Texas, so I just, took a little road trip 4 hours away to Houston. And I went to the city of Houston. I also went to Galveston, which is like on the beach. And I stayed at, a cheap little hotel, but I just had the best of time. I remember sitting at a Mexican restaurant that was right on the beach, and I had some really good fajitas, and I was just taking in the moment. And I was like, wow, this is so much fun. I was like, I'm not relying on anyone for my happiness. I'm just enjoying where I am at the moment, just me and myself. I wasn't stressed about what anyone else is doing, if other people are having a good time. It was just me. And that was the first time that I really felt at peace with myself being alone. Because I feel like, when you're growing up and you're in high school, even when you're in college, a lot of people have this sense that it's not okay to be alone. And at least that's how I grew up, that, you always have to have like a friend with you or a guy with you. But this was for the first time when I had the opportunity and the realization that I was happy by myself. So I didn't have to rely on anyone else for that happiness. And I loved that feeling. I loved the feeling of being independent for the first time. And I think what I was going to say earlier is like in college, a lot of people feel like, oh, I don't even want to go eat in the cafeteria by myself. Or, in high school, if you eat by yourself in the cafeteria, it's not a good thing. It's not a good look on you. And, you're probably picked on if you don't have friends sitting with you. But the reality is like that doesn't matter. Like being by yourself is actually so rewarding. Like you get to just sit with yourself. The only person that you ever have control over is yourself. And so you get to be with that person. You get to rely on yourself for your own happiness. And I think that is really the feeling that I fell in love with. And that's the first time that was before I had ever even left the country. And honestly, that I think prepared me for what was to come. And that was like the very first time I ever got a sense of how much I love really traveling alone. So after that, I took a trip with EF College Break, which is a tour company where people from the ages 18 to 28 travel together. It's an amazing company. And I would 100% recommend going without any friends. So you go solo, but then you meet other people who are traveling and on the tour. And I still consider that solo travel. Now, that's not what I've done for all my trips. I've actually gone myself with an itinerary that I've made. And, that's how I do most of my trips. But this very first time I ever went out of the country, it was with a group. And it was, super fun. I still prefer completely solo travel over traveling with a group of people that you don't know. But that is like a good gateway to get yourself to go overseas with a group for the first time. I would highly recommend traveling with EF College Break, or I think it's now called EF Ultimate Break. You can Google them online. I'll try to leave their link down below. If you're watching on YouTube, if you're watching on my website, I don't think I can leave links, but I will try. So if you're not watching on YouTube, by the way, little plug-in, go like my YouTube channel and subscribe, please. Because once I get 100 subscribers, then I can change my URL and it'll be easier for people to find me. I forgot what I was talking about. Oh yeah, so EF Ultimate Break. So yeah, that's like a very good gateway into travel if you've never traveled before. So that it's nice because you can choose, if you want to go into town with the group, or if you're by yourself, or if you want to be by yourself, you can be like, hey guys, I'm gonna, skip this tour today. Or they even have time that, is for free time, and you can choose to either hang out with people or, kind of do your own thing. And, I think there was even like someone who was on their honeymoon whenever I went. So they like spent a lot of time together and not with the rest of the group. But of course, when we would travel through different countries on the bus and on the trains, you have to be there for that, of course, or you miss out on what you paid for. So yeah, that is like a really good gateway. So that was like my first real international solo trip, but I kind of made a group of friends. So that's one thing for me is that's why I prefer to not travel with a tour company, is because I am a very social person and I like to meet people and, make relationships. And I have, one really good friendship out of that trip that I still talk to her even today. And I think it's been, I don't know, 4 years since then. But I will say I am the type of person where I'm always concerned if other people are having fun. So if I am, traveling with a group like EF Ultimate Break and I make a friend, I want to make sure that we're doing things that she or he enjoys as well. So, if one person wants to go to one restaurant, I want to go to another, I'm more likely to be like, yeah, okay, we can go to your restaurant. But, when you're traveling, that's something that you don't get that time back. And, for most people, you might not ever go to that country again. So you want to make sure that you can get the most out of your experience. And if you're someone like me who's who's like a people pleaser, then I definitely think, it's best to travel solo because you don't want to put yourself in those situations where you're going to, let other people kind of make the decisions for what you do. Now, if you're someone who is, very persistent and you're like, no, we're doing this, and you're more of the person who likes to take charge of things, then absolutely that would be great for you because you'd be kind of like the leader of, the people you're hanging out with in the group. So yeah, that's the only downfall of that. Like when I was in London, I don't regret it at all. And if you're listening, you know who you are, my friend. Um, we went in London and she wanted to get a tattoo. And like I was so honored to go with her to get a tattoo. But at the same time, I didn't get to do, really anything else because we spent that whole time trying to find the tattoo place. So I, spent half a day in London trying to help her find the tattoo, which again, I totally don't regret because I made, a really great friend from that. And she even did the same for me. We were looking for my tattoo place when we were in Germany. And so, yeah, I just think that we both missed opportunities where she could have went with someone else and, actually explored the city instead of trying to get a tattoo with me. But again, that did come and make like really good friendships out of that. So of course I don't regret it, but at the same time, that's another reason to go back to England, I guess, or to London because, I didn't spend enough time like I should have in the city itself. Because ultimately, for me at least, maybe your reason of traveling is so you can make friends. But for me, my reason of traveling is so that I can truly get to know the city better and the culture better and not, just make friends from America. So yeah, but again, girl, if you're listening, I don't mean to say that I don't enjoy doing all the stuff we did with you. I did enjoy it because We had so much fun getting lost in London. So I'm just using that as an example of, solo travel compared to group travel, I guess. So yeah. So one of the main reasons that I really truly just love traveling by myself is, like I said, you don't have to worry about other people. I remember I was in the Ukraine and I had studied abroad in Lithuania. And I was in charge of planning a trip for maybe it was like 4 or 5 of my friends from the university. And this was the first time that I actually traveled with people that I knew on like a planned trip. So I was super worried. And again, if you guys are listening, please don't take any of this to an offense. I'm just using this as examples. It is truly how I felt, but I did have a good time and I wouldn't take back any of the moments with you guys. But I was so stressed the whole time. And I think that they knew that because they did know that I was a people planner, or I'm sorry, a person pleaser, people planner. But I'm a person pleaser, people pleaser. I cannot talk tonight. Oh my goodness. Sorry, guys. This is not good for a podcast. But anyways, so they knew how I am. And I think they could tell that I was super stressed. And I felt a lot of pressure because at that time, I had already been to like 26 countries. And some of these people, they were traveling out of the country for the first time or, like for the third time or something like that. It wasn't like they were expert travelers. So I had a lot of responsibilities, to make sure everything was put together and finding the hotel or the Airbnb, finding things to do. So I was so stressed and worried. And honestly, I think that ruined the whole country for me. So it was just a short trip because, like I said, we were living in Lithuania and, we just did a little weekend trip. I think it was like a 3-day, 4-day weekend trip. And we stayed in Kyiv, which Kyiv is such a beautiful city. But I remember some of us wanted to go. I don't even know what it was. It was like I don't know, they wanted to go to some monument or something like hiking, which I love to hike, but on my bucket list of things to do in Ukraine was to go to a toilet museum. Okay, reality check. Most people don't give two craps about going to a toilet museum, but this is something that I had heard about, and I like to do interesting and unique things when I travel. And now it's so cool too because I can like tell people, "Oh, I went to a toilet museum in Ukraine." And like only the super interesting people or like, hippie people are like, "Oh my gosh, I've heard of that." So, some of us wanted to go to the toilet museum, some of us wanted to go to this monument, but I think like I said, we had like 4 or 5 people total. We didn't want to completely split up, but we had to. And I don't know, it was just so much stress trying to figure out what we wanted to do. And we literally spent half the day trying to decide, well, what are we going to do? We don't really want to split up, but we want to do different things. And like I said, we were only there for 3 or 4 days. And for a short trip like that, every hour is valuable. Every, minute is valuable, honestly. And, I had already had everything planned out, but, it's just that's what comes along whenever you're traveling with other people in a group of people, especially. Maybe if it's just you and one other person, but still, like I said, going back to, when I was in London, you're still doing things that the other person wants to do. And like I said, for me, I want to get the most out of my trip. I don't want to, worry about what anyone else is worried about because really, like I said, you are spending so much money. Well, not so much money. We're going to talk about how expensive it actually is to travel in another podcast. It's actually a lot less than most people think. But still, you're spending, your valuable, hard earned money on traveling and you're spending your time on exploring this place. And if you have someone else there, it's not the same. You're not going to get the same experience. And especially, if you have a fight with someone, I remember in Ukraine, oh my goodness, this is so funny. So, we were college students on a budget. And some people, well, okay, we went to like this chocolate restaurant where you drink like chocolate, like it's a drink, and not hot chocolate, but just pure chocolate. And it was like, I can't remember. It's like the national chocolate company that the president owned, I think, in Ukraine. like Roshan, maybe. I can't remember exactly. That might be wrong. But we went like really far to find this place. And we had to walk back to our Airbnb. And it was a pretty far walk to get there. It probably took us an hour. We didn't think it was going to take that long, but it ended up taking longer than we expected. Well, on the way back, everyone was tired. And I remember my feet were killing me. And, there's a point where you've walked so much in a day, you're just like, okay, I need either a taxi or, something. Well, there was a few people, maybe like one person in our group that refused to take the train. I don't know if he was just scared to be around people. I don't really know because the train system in Ukraine is really cool. I think it has like one of the deepest train systems in the world. But I don't remember his reason for not wanting to take the train that night. But it was like it was getting dark. And I thought that we had all decided, yes, we're going to take the train. And so we were walking one way, and then this guy was like, no, guys, we need to be going this way. And like, I remember he got so frustrated because he thought we were like going behind his back to take the train, but it was just a form of discommunication. And so that's just an example of, why you should not travel. Well, okay, I shouldn't say should not, but why it's better to travel by yourself and not with a group of people. Travel solo. I promise it's better. Okay, so another reason, so yeah, like I said, you get to do what you enjoy doing, not, what other people enjoy doing. If you'd rather take the train and someone would rather walk, you don't have to worry about that when you're by yourself traveling, You can take a taxi if you wanted to spend a few extra dollars. It's okay. Another reason why I like to travel solo is because, okay, you get to meet more people when you're traveling solo. And you get to meet locals when you're traveling solo. So a lot of people, when I tell them, yeah, I travel by myself, 47 countries, they're like, whoa, you must get really lonely. And I always tell them, like, no, I don't get lonely because I'm always around other people. So when I travel solo, it's cheaper for me to stay in hostels because most hostels are around $4 to $15 a night, depending on the country and region that I'm in and what I choose to stay in. So whenever you're in a hostel though, you are more open to meeting people. Even if you're with someone else and you're in a hostel, you're more likely to talk to that person and be like, okay, what are our plans today? But if you're alone in a hostel, then you're more approachable. Someone is more likely to be like, hey, what are you doing here? Are you by yourself? And it's really cool because you just get to meet other people that are also traveling solo. And even if they're not traveling solo, they still might be more, interested in talking to you because you're by yourself. And, I I personally would rather talk to someone and feel more comfortable talking to someone who's also traveling by themselves because I wouldn't want to just say, "Hey, you're a group of people, let me join your little vacation that you're on." It's a different vibe when you're by yourself, and people recognize that and they see that. But also locals, I remember I cannot remember. I think I was in Stuttgart, Germany, and I actually was staying somewhere with a local that I had met, through an organization. And I decided to explore the city by myself that day, just solo, explore. And I was taking the train up to like the TV tower so I could go up and see the whole view of the city. And a local was, on the train and they were just talking about how they were getting off work. And it was so cool because they were like, wow, you're not from here, and they weren't expecting me to not be from there because I wasn't with other people. They thought I was maybe someone who lived there or staying long term, but I was really just there for only a week. And honestly, we had the best conversation. I don't even remember what it was all about, but I remember thinking like if I was with someone else or a group of people, this person would have never even talked to me. They gave me so many like tips and information about the city and things that I should do. I just felt like I had so much valuable information. And I remember thinking, like I said, if I would have been with people, I would have never had that opportunity to talk to someone. And if I would have been, this is another little thing too don't be in a rush whenever you're traveling. Make time to meet people. Always, always have what I like to call margin time. If there's, an emergency that you see when you're on your way to somewhere, don't be in such a rush that you can't stop and help. Make time, you know, in case you see an emergency, or to talk to someone that you meet at a coffee shop when you're getting your coffee. Don't be in a rush. And I even think that's something valuable to take away for your everyday life, not just when traveling, but I think even more, especially when traveling, make time for those opportunities. And not even just, for people, but also if you see something, if you're walking, say to, I don't know, if you're going to like a show or an opera show or something like that, and you're walking from your hostel or hotel to the theater or the showroom, you could explore on your way there. If you see a cute little shop and, your show is in the evening, that shop's going to be closed on your way back and you might not be able to find that shop again. So just make time, to explore the little areas and meet new people. Don't be in a rush when you're traveling. People always say that traveling is stressful to them or something like that, but it's because they make it stressful on themselves. And really, you have to know how to time manage and, make room for those extra things so that you can really enjoy your time. Because most of the time, those little extra things, those, extra things that you see as you're walking down the street or people that you meet, that might be the highlight of your trip. The things that aren't on your itinerary to do or on your list, of things to see, that stuff is what's really the cool things, and that's kind of what makes you feel like a local. And you get to see, the local aspect of life. If you're in a rush and just, on tours constantly and have tours back to back, you don't get to experience true travel, I don't believe. So yeah, that's my little rant on that. And again, that's even something that you can do because you're traveling solo. I guess it does kind of tie together because if you're with people, they might not want to explore this little shop that you see, or they might be taking longer to get ready. But really, when you're alone, you control your time. No one else controls what you're doing. They won't make you late because they're not there, So yeah, okay. The next reason why I travel solo. Honestly, you grow so much as a person. Before I ever went on my first trip out of the country, and again, it was solo, but with a group still kind of, but I consider that solo. So the first time I ever traveled solo, which was also the first time I left the country. Anyway, first time I went out of the country, I realized when I got back how much I changed. Before that trip, I'm going to be honest and real with you guys right now. I was depressed, so depressed. I didn't know what I was missing in my life. And I went out of the country for, I think it was 2.5 weeks, like 14 days, I think. And I didn't know it was possible to grow in a period of 2 weeks like I did. I am forever grateful for that first trip that I took. And if I wouldn't have taken that first trip, then I honestly, truly don't think I would be alive today, like real talk. So travel for me, traveling solo for me is not just something I do for fun or because I'm addicted to it, and we'll talk about that later as well. But it's something that helps with my mental health. And I think if more people realized this, then they would take travel so much seriously. But I don't want to get too much into that because that is good talk for another podcast. So I'm going to write that down and talk about that later. But it helps you grow as a person so much. You learn what things you enjoy doing. Because, like I said, when you're by yourself, you decide what you do. You decide what shops you want to go into. You decide if you want to be early or late somewhere. You're not dependent on someone else, and you're not dependent on how, their schedule and routine is going to affect you. So you really get to see what you prefer to do. And people say, well, when I'm in a different country, I act different. I'm more on a schedule. Well, maybe that's how you really want to be then. That's whenever it shows out. But whenever you're home, there's things that get in the way that don't allow you to be who you truly want to be, normal life routines. This really, really helps you learn more about yourself and grow as a person. And, as I mentioned before too, you're not relying on other people to determine, what things you want to do. I just think that it's so valuable, honestly, to take that first step and say, you know what, I'm gonna go, even if it's somewhere like London. London and I'm speaking to you guys like you're from the US. If you're from India, even if you go somewhere in your own region, I'm not just saying, to Americans, wherever you are, but somewhere comparable to like the UK to the USA. If you're from the US, I would encourage you, even if it's to somewhere like England, go to London. And if that's your first time that you're out of the country and you're alone out of the country, they speak the same language as you. You can read and understand everything. Study the map before you go. Make sure, do all the steps. And we'll talk about this again in another podcast about what to do, how to prepare before a solo trip. But take the steps to prepare yourself so that you're not scared and that you're not worried about, what exactly you're going to do. And honestly, I think that if more people would just book the trip, if they would just go and, don't wait for other people to say, oh, I'll go with you. No, go by yourself, because I always hear people say, oh, I would love to travel, but, my husband or wife doesn't want to go with me, or, my family member doesn't want to go with me, or my best friend doesn't want to go with me, or they say they'll go, but they keep pushing it back. Go by yourself. Now, don't let it run, your relationship. Like if you're married, make sure that you talk to your husband or wife about it. But, still go by yourself. You don't have to have someone else go with you. Even if it's for, just a week or, 5 days, 4 days. I wouldn't say don't go anywhere less than 4 days if you can. Go more than 4 days. But just go, you will realize what you've been missing out on. And now I will say solo travel is not for everyone, but I think it's something that everyone should at least try and see if they're interested in it. If you can't tell, I am absolutely 100% for solo travel. I think that, it's going to help you grow as a person. It'll help you understand yourself better. And, I think it really just allows you to see the country and, to travel more like a local, which is, what I'm all about. I want to explore the world as the locals do in each country. I don't want to go from the lens of a tourist. And when you're with a group, when you're, doing tours, which is okay to do tours, I'm not saying not to do tours, but, just when you're with other people, you don't get the real feel of what it's like to be in that country. So yeah, guys, I hope that y'all enjoyed this podcast. I hope I didn't get too deep, in some of the areas, but I just wanted to be real and open with you guys about why I 100% encourage solo travel. So yeah, I guess next week we will dive into another topic. And yeah, I hope you guys had a good Monday. I hope y'all have a good rest of your week. And I will talk to you guys next week. Bye.